All right, I'm here with Seth Rothman, sports director of WQAQ-FM here on campus at Quinnipiac. Seth, just want to talk a little bit about what went on with this Quinnipiac ice hockey season. In your thoughts, this is a team that lost 5 out of 6 conference games to end the regular season, and then to go on a 5-game winning streak before ultimately falling a little bit short in the championship game. What do you take from this season?
I take a great sense of improvement that this team went on, and I've been saying this for a couple days now, but the improvement that this team has undergone since my freshman year, and I'm a junior now, from playing in a Atlantic Hockey to losing in the Atlantic Hockey Championship game, now in the ECAC, and becoming a dominant team in this league. I think one thing Quinnipiac can take out of this season is they have this feeling that they can play with every team in this conference.
Yeah, certainly, and I would have to agree with you on that sense. And, I mean, talk about going forward into next year. I mean, obviously you're going to lose Cashman, who tremendous leader. No one's going to doubt what he meant to this entire program. And Bordieri, who I thought was one of the best defensive players on the team. What's the outlook going into next season? I think an extremely bright one.
It's really hard to say, I think, Jimmy, because you're losing Reed, and some people are trying to tell me it's not going to be a big loss for this team. They are mistaken. Losing a guy like Reed Cashman, a guy that leads one of the national leaders in assists for the season, all-time program leader, games played, and assists. You're losing one of the best players to ever play at this school. That's not an easy thing to come out of. However, you're also gaining a nice defenseman. Out of what I hear, Jake Bauer looks very good, and if his namesake on TV is any indication, he's going to be quite the player. There's definitely a good, defensive core coming back. Henningsen, Meyer, Soderberg will be back. And then you look at that offense, which is not losing anybody. Brandon Wong, you got to think he's going to get better. That number one line, Leach, Bates, and Nelson, going to be the same. So really all the offense is going to be the same. The defense is what you worry about. And again, losing Reed is a big loss, but I think you're going to look at a team that will contend once again for the automatic bid to the NCAAs.
Jim Rose here, standing with video coordinator extraordinaire Kevin Sokolsky. Kevin, certainly a very solid season for the men's ice hockey team before falling a little bit short in the title game. What are your thoughts on what happened throughout the course of this year?
Well, it was a great season, and the team, overperformed again just like they did last year, and it's a great testament to head coach Rand Packnold and the assistant coaches Ben Sire, Scott Robson, and Paul Brown on the ability to bring in the recruits, and especially with Jack McDonald as well, and John Leahy on bringing that new building, the TD Bank North Sports Center, to Quinnipiac University.
And can you just talk a little bit about, this is a team that lost 5 out of their last 6 ECAC games, and then gets in the playoffs, and all of a sudden it's a new team out there. What'd you see?
Well, the team did play 40 games, one of the most in the nation this year. And the boys, they played very well through the whole season. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season, but what's come down to the playoffs. And, going and sweeping Union at home, then going on the road to play at Cornell at Liner Rink, which is one of the toughest places to play, and sweeping them, and then finally making it to the Final Four of the ECAC Championship in only the second year, and sweeping St. Lawrence 4-0, and then playing Clarkson at 2-0 beginning in the third period and eventually losing 4-2. But the team has played so well. Brandon Wong, Reed Cashman, Jean-Marc Baudouin, and Bud Fisher in net. They had a great season all around.
All right, Jim Rose here with Bill Schweitzer. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the Quinnipiac Bobcats hockey season.
It was a wild ride, and it was one that was so great because it was unexpected. They went through the regular season. It was a pretty good season. It was the first half of the season. I thought they were terrific, one of the best teams in the conference. Struggled a little bit coming down the stretch, but did they really struggle, or were they just playing the best teams in the conference at the end of the season? But then once they got to the playoffs, it was like somebody flicked a switch, and it was a completely different team. They just did everything that they had to do. One of the big things about them during the season was they were lapses. They'd play a game, and you'd have a lapse of a couple of minutes in this period, a couple of minutes in that period. Once they got to the playoffs, there weren't any lapses. They played for 60 minutes and came within 7.5 minutes of getting an NCAA bid.
Yeah, and the thing that surprised me personally was seeing them lose 5 of their last 6 ECAC games and then really, win 5 straight and then, have Clarkson right on the verge. And what are your thoughts on what really contributed to that?
Well, you know what? It shows you what kind of a conference that is. The ECAC is a conference where anybody can beat anybody. And, those losing 5 of those 6 games, they probably could have won at least 4 of those games that they lost. So, a bounce here, a bounce there. They started to get the bounces in the playoffs. And, you make your own luck, you make your own bounces, but they took advantage of everything that they could in the playoffs.
And what about the job that, specifically Coach Pecknold and then, Reed Cashman being the captain of the team? How did those two really affect this ride?
Oh, tremendously. In fact, the whole coaching staff, Rand Pecknold, Scott Robson, Ben Sire, Paul Brown, did a tremendous coaching job in the playoffs. And they got the team to buy into what they were doing. They played St. Lawrence the last weekend of the regular season and really kind of got manhandled by them. And they figured out what they had to do and did it. I mean, St. Lawrence's forecheck is just tremendous, and Quinnipiac couldn't move the puck at all against them in that regular season game. And, I mean, they just dominated St. Lawrence, and it was because of the game plan that they had.
And final question, what do you think the outlook's moving forward after this season? Really an extremely young team losing Bordieri and Cashman, and that's it. I mean, what are your expectations moving into next year for these guys?
Yeah, it looks so great on paper. All you're losing is 2 guys, but you got to take a look at who you're losing. You're losing, Cashman, who arguably is the best player that's ever played here at Quinnipiac. And you're also losing a lot of leadership from Cashman and Bordieri. And so I asked the question, where's that leadership going to come from next year? But I asked the same question last year because you had 3 guys that were seniors that were tremendous leaders. You had Ty Dienema, you had Joe Dumais, and you had John Kelly. And those guys really, they didn't put up great numbers, but boy, were they great leaders on and off the ice. So I wondered how they were going to do it. And they did it by Cashman and Bordieri stepping up next year. So who is it going to be next year? We don't know.